Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gaming with Geeks first impressions of the Back 4 Blood closed beta. And I did not call it an open beta this time, as I did repeatedly on the stream that Lethal Lightning and I did. The open beta is happening hopefully by the time we get this video out for you. So if you're interested to check out Back 4 Blood, which in case you didn't know is the spiritual successor to the Left 4 Dead games, we have these impressions of the closed beta in which we played. So I guess we'll start with just general impressions. Disparu, what did you think of the game overall? No specific modes, no nitty-gritty details, but I guess your general impression of the game.
I'm coming from a perspective of I loved Left 4 Dead 2, and I really wanted just something that was Left 4 Dead 2 with better graphics. And what I got was something that was good, but just misses the final points that would have made it great, in my opinion.
Okay, Lethal Lightning, your initial impression?
I also liked Left 4 Dead, and I think this is pretty much Left 4 Dead 3 with just a few upgraded, more modernized mechanics. I think I'm a bit more positive towards it than Disparu, but I do agree there's a few little things that could have been a bit better. But it is a beta, so I don't want to cling too much to those things.
Beta!
Okay, yeah, and I think I'm probably somewhere in between both of you. I did have a lot of fun with it, with the PvE mode in particular, but we'll get into that later. But I did not play tons of Left 4 Dead back in the day. I played a fair amount of it, but I was also, I think, mostly a console person at around that time. So
Beta!
I actually played a good chunk of Left 4 Dead on Xbox 360, which, especially now, playing a horde shooter in which precision targeting is pretty important, seems insane to me to do with a controller. So I was pretty happy to be playing this game with a keyboard and mouse, and liked it quite a bit, but I do see some issues with little nitpicks like the lore. I thought that it was a bit strange that, I guess we'll get into more specific stuff now. I thought it was a bit strange that you are playing as a group of zombie hunters. Professionals, probably not the right word, but you're effectively members of a little militia called the Cleaners, whose job is to go out and kill zombies, to basically clean up the area to hopefully take back the world for the humans. And what I found strange about the character designs is they all seem like they're designed in a way like the Left 4 Dead characters were, in which they're just in their street clothes. And it's like the zombie apocalypse just happened and that's what they happen to be wearing. They don't seem like they're kitted out and ready to fight. It's weird that one of the guys is like a tubby middle-aged man, another one is like an elderly woman. Where the Left 4 Dead premise of just this is the zombie apocalypse that just happened, and this ragtag group of survivors has just grouped together in a group of 4 and they're fighting to survive. So that, I think, as I started playing more and more, kind of was bothering me, especially when they would be talking as if like calling each other cleaners and things like that. It's like, are you guys supposed to be a tightly trained militia unit who is trying to take back Earth for the humans, or are you a bunch of random civilians?
It definitely came across as like they were just kind of like survivors as opposed to an actual military that had gotten their shit together. And even like that, you can only get access to like one main mission for like one run.
Yeah.
And that even came across as more of like a survival mission as opposed to destroying a whole chunk of zombies, which you do regardless because of the gameplay. But no, I'm in complete agreement with that. It didn't really bother me too much while playing. It was just something I always thought was just kind of dumb.
Yeah, I never even noticed it until you just brought it up. And it's weird now they do both because they're in the civilians, but at the end of that mission where you're literally using a howitzer to blow up a tunnel and then escape, that seems like a mission you've been deliberately gone in to close up the nests. So that was a targeted military strike, but you're also in... And I know it's probably just done for skins and stuff, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I think with these games, you can't take it too seriously with that. Like, I don't think it's meant to have a really coherent lore. And these are, the way I saw it was, the situation would be like us. The world's ended, and yeah, we might be in a military camp going out to do military stuff to save the world, but we're still just normal people with no military training kind of thing. So I think people that ended up at a military base wouldn't have, not going to have a load of uniforms for everyone to wear and tactical gear for all people. You're just kind of using whatever you've got lying around.
They got a fuckload of guns, so
that's fair. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, they would pretty much just be wearing whatever's comfortable for them. So Lethal Lightning, the character that you really liked, Holly, I noticed that she has a sweater tied around her waist. Not really a very practical thing if you're going to be running at creatures that are going to be grabbing at you. And I think the more I started thinking about, like, man, what are these kids? The only person who looks like he's geared up and ready to fight zombies is Walker. Because even Evangelo has, like, really big hair. And you're just like, man, you would not want to have hair like that if your sole purpose in this world is to go out and be fighting close quarters with zombies. That's like Lee said in The Walking Dead to Clementine. Like, Clementine, cut that hair short. We learned this lesson a while ago, but I think Disparew's probably correct in that it's the idea that they are going to be selling characters and character skins, so it's the Fortniteization of all modern multiplayer games, where it's like, oh, the characters have to be zany and wacky so that we have the ability to give them all sorts of cool costumes and things. And it's like, well, but I don't know. I think the lore would have made more sense if they just made it more like Left 4 Dead, which is just like you're grouped up with these 3 other survivors in this city, and your job is to escape. But I think they also wanted to give you that home base segment that you're walking around with the firing range and the supply lines and the perk cards you get, which I'd love to get your thoughts on. What did you guys think of the perk card system?
The perk cards, I was very worried about that going into the game. I think it opened... I still am a little bit, because it does open up a lot of microtransaction possibilities, especially if they start getting a bit over the top, because the perk cards... The system I actually don't mind itself, because essentially you got, like, we'll say 20 cards in a deck, right? That doesn't mean you get 20 perks when you go into it. It deals them out to you, and you pick one every round. So eventually, like, you just become a little bit stronger between each round as each round gets progressively harder and harder. And you kind of find yourself creating a build as you go, depending on the cards you get dealt and which ones you picked, because you could just go, look, I've got heaps of medic-like cards, so I guess I'll play the role of a medic. So I kind of like that as well, because you kind of feel like you're getting a little bit stronger each time. So that's cool, but I am pretty worried about how, like, 6 months from now they could come out with, like, some god tier perk card and they go, yeah, that costs $20.
Yeah, and they have said that the cards themselves are not going to be sold as microtransactions.
Oh, that's good.
That it's only going to be the cleaners and the maps, which is kind of neat how they're doing that too, in a way that doesn't totally bother me, although most people, when they hear selling map packs, that seems like a bygone era thing. But apparently what they're doing is making it so that if you get a DLC map and you host a run, then any player that's matchmaking that joins your match can play that DLC map.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So you have the chance of playing DLC maps for free, but it's just random. You can't decide, okay, we're playing this new act. And I guess we should also preface the way the PvE mode is structured is in the beta, there's Act 1, and Act 1 is 8 separate little missions, you could say. And they're pretty short, and you can continue them mid-run, which I thought was really cool. So if you pop on and want to play Back 4 Blood for 20 minutes and you get past one of the first missions, and then you get to a safe house and quit, next time you play, you can come back and then play the second mission. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Disparu, what did you think of the perk card system and everything, though?
I loved it. I didn't know what to think going in. I know, like, when Quake tried something similar with abilities, I didn't like that, so it was very dodgy for me.
Champions.
But I loved it overall. And also, I liked the whole, you get points to buy the cards in each mission, and it does feel like you've achieved something at the end of it. The issue that I found, though, is it does mean that every time you die, you get nothing. And that just makes it so much more frustrating, especially if you're playing on your own. Someone's run off on their own and they've caused the complete wipe, and now you're getting punished and can't get the cards. It definitely makes the game more frustrating when you're trying to get something and you can't. So
we will certainly get into quitters ruining the game once we get to the versus mode.
Oh.
But I think that my view of the perk card system and the way it's handled was very positive, actually. I thought that made things really interesting, almost like a bit of a roguelike element to it. Like if you played a game like Dead Cells or Hades, where you're going into it and you do want to create a build that suits your play style, but because not all the options are available to you every time, and there is an element of random to it, that it's like, well, I have my deck and I know which cards are in my deck, but what cards am I have 5 cards that are drawn between each mission, like once you get to each safe house area, and you can choose one of them to add to your build per mission. So by the end of it, I guess you can have 8 additional perks on top of the first one that you get as kind of a freebie. And I thought that was kind of a neat way to be like, oh, well, let's see which cards I get here. How good are the players on my team functioning in different roles? Or maybe I really like this melee weapon that I found, so I'm going to build towards using more melee stuff, because we've got one guy who uses sniper rifles, everyone else is using ARs, and I thought that was all kind of neat. I did also notice, too, that the ammo scarcity makes it so that it would make sense for players to use different weapons as well. Yep. So while I found the assault rifles to be far and away the best weapons, I also found that assault rifle ammo was very hard to find when every single person on my team was using assault rifles. And even the ammo, the item you have that's an ammo box, doesn't even totally refill your ammo. So it's like, you got to kind of luck out and then be the first one to find an ammo crate, or you're kind of screwed. But the other thing that you can do is maybe I'll use a sniper rifle. Maybe I'll use a shotgun because I know that Lethal is using an assault rifle. And maybe you're going to stick to a submachine gun because it's submachine gun handgun bullets that are the same. And because you don't want to have the same ammo for 2 weapons, you should probably be using a submachine gun, and for your secondary, a melee weapon. And then you could build. I just thought there was some flexibility there, and it made it so that I think as players get deeper into this game, they're going to find interesting ways to compose their team. And I think for a multiplayer game, that's pretty important and pretty worthwhile.
There's quite a lot of guns in this game as well, isn't there? Like, I was pretty surprised with how many variations of different guns. It's not just one AR, one shotgun. There's like 3 or 4 of each different category.
Yeah, and interesting that you say that too, because what I was actually about to say was, what did you guys think of the system of weapons and attachments, and how you can't take attachments off weapons and then put it on another one? Because I was hit or miss on that.
Yeah, you need to be able to remove attachment. Even if you can only remove the scope, you have to be able to, at least at a minimum. If you can't move it onto another weapon, okay, if that's your cache sync, fair enough, but you have to remove a scope. I don't want an SMG with a 4x scope because that's the way I picked it up. That was ridiculous.
That was happening to me a lot too. And I was like, I never want a 4x scope in this game. There's not really a reason for it at all, unless, like I said, unless you have a perfectly composed team and you've got 3 people that are the vanguard and one guy is just hanging back with a sniper rifle dealing damage. Then sure, I could see it. But honestly, the targets, the powerful targets are so big in this game that I don't think you would need that much of a zoom unless you've got terrible, terrible eyesight.
Just to play devil's advocate. I agree with you, but we don't know what the other maps are like.
I guess that's also true.
There's only one enemy in the game that does significant range damage, isn't there?
The spitter.
Yeah, I guess the spitter, yeah.
Yeah, all the rest are close range and charge you. So with a 1x, it's like I always found the most dangerous stuff was right next to me anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that if they gave you the option to even take a sight off and just go to iron sights from there, like not necessarily have an inventory of all sorts of scopes and make it so that you've got a little gun porn segment in the middle of this fast-paced horde shooter where it's like, oh, hold on, I got to get my build right, okay. But you can pick up attachments that you find, and I sort of like that you're liable to find a really powerful weapon that's better than the one that you've been modifying and tweaking between the rounds, because then you're in a position where you really got to say, should I pick up this Scar, which does much better damage, or keep my M4 that has an extended mag attachment, a perfect sight for my playstyle, a muzzle that gives me better recoil control, or whatever it might be. And I thought that when you put players in a position where they have to make a choice, that is really compelling. But as I totally agree with Disbrew, though, that the other end of that spectrum is like sometimes you get a sight that just makes your shotgun totally useless, because why do you need 12 times zoom on a shotgun? And it's like, well, I don't need any sight on this shotgun at all. I could be firing it from the hip if the hip fire in this game wasn't absolutely trash, which I also found strange because Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2, there is no aim down sights. So I think they should actually have made it that hip fire was as effective, if not almost as effective as aiming down sights, and that aiming down sights was more for the player's benefit of just the target becomes slightly bigger and I can get more specific with my reticle. But
the answer to that is laser sights. When you have a laser sight, it's basically perfect aim, even at hip fire.
Yeah.
And Left 4 Dead 2 had a similar mechanic. It did have spread, even though there was no ADS. But laser sight was always godly in Left 4 Dead 2 as well. And I found that with a lot of the game. It's so desperate to try and change things that from Left 4 Dead just to go, look, we're not a copy of the same game.
Yeah.
That it almost feels like they deliberately ruined some stuff that was good. And I would have preferred they just copied a lot more, to be honest.
Even though it basically is just Left 4 Dead 3, as much as they try to get away from it.
Yes.
Yeah, but like also the interesting thing about Back 4 Blood happening now as opposed to how long ago was Left 4 Dead 2 again? Like
I was in
12
school,
years
man.
ago.
Yeah.
I think it was like 12 years ago, something to that effect. But the Left 4 Dead has kind of become its own genre, and there's been lots of games in that genre. Even recently, like my favorite one personally is Warhammer End Times Vermintide 2, which is awesome. Like if you guys have never played Vermintide 2, I strongly recommend it, and I'm super excited for Darktide, which is the same studio as 40K, kind of Left 4 Dead like set in the Warhammer universe, but it's Warhammer 40K. And actually, recently also I played World War Z, which was a game by Saber Interactive, who are some like ex-id Software guys. And it was pitched, not initially, actually, I found this out while researching a Days Gone video I'm working on, but they talked to Sony about adapting their Left 4 Dead game, or not Left 4 Dead, sorry, their World War Z game into a multiplayer mode for Days Gone because they have these huge hordes of zombies. Like, I mean, if you've seen the World War Z movie, you kind of get the idea. But it's actually a really solid, like, third-person kind of Left 4 Dead-like. So we're seeing a lot of these games, so even if Back 4 Blood is just kind of Left 4 Dead, but, you know, a slightly newer, I don't know if that's going to be enough to set it apart from the pack these days. Because, I mean, there's Left 4 Dead fans that will at least have it on their radar, but at the same time, as like Disbrew was saying, and I think I've seen the pulse of a lot of the Left 4 Dead fan community, is that the things that were dumbed down for this one are upsetting them, which I guess can kind of lead us into the versus mode, because
It's shit.
I
it's
played
awful.
a bit of it, and not good. Not at
Has
all.
anyone here been able to actually finish a game of it?
No, everyone leaves.
Yeah.
100% of the time. The closest I got was it's best of 3, and literally I've got to a 1-1 and still everyone leaves. There's like one round left to go, and just like, no, I don't care if I don't get points. This is so boring and awful. They just leave. And I tried for about 2 hours to finish a game, couldn't.
The really interesting thing too is there's no automatic end state for the game. So if the way it works is it's 4v4, and you play as 4 cleaners versus 4 ridden, who are the zombies, because the universe is scared of using the word zombie for whatever reason. It's like, oh no, it's not zombies, it's the ridden. It's totally different. It's like, they're zombies. Come on, like come on, calm the fuck down.
And cleaners
They're
is a
zombies.
stupid name while we're here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that also, but I mean, at least if it's like they have a faction and their faction's got to be called something. Like the cleaners, I can forgive a little bit more than the ridden, because that's stupid. Just like
I do think it's a dumb name. I mean, Call of Duty at the moment's got Omega Group and stuff like that, and they're zombies. It's just way cooler names.
But I mean, like, I think it's the names of the actual creatures themselves that most, like, even The Walking Dead, that is like the zombie property. I mean, or at least was. They're walkers in that one, or in the comic, they're roamers. And in not Left 4 Dead, in The Last of Us, they're clickers, and in Days Gone, they're freakers. And it's like, guys,
Just use the
they're
word.
all zombies. Like, we all know. Like, it makes me think there's a possibility someone just owns the rights to the word zombie and that will sue. And, like, so it's like, we don't want to call them zombies. Or they want to be special and, like, oh, well, they're not your traditional zombies. These ones can run. And be like, yeah, there's plenty of zombie movies where they run. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I kind of forget what my point was there.
PvP
Okay,
is
yeah, so
shit.
the PvP, yes. So, so going back to the PvP, so 4 people play as the cleaners and 4 people play as the ridden. The 4 people playing as the ridden have to kill the cleaners, and they will kill the cleaners. That's the other thing. In every round, it's essentially impossible to totally survive as the cleaners because all you're doing is playing for time. And you have a battle royale style swarm of like insects, I guess, that are, I guess, the dead zone, or the what would be the word in a battle royale?
The
that you'd
storm,
say?
the gas.
The area, yeah, the
call
storm,
it
the
gas.
gas, whatever the hell you would call it. The area that you immediately take damage if you walk into gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it's like a 9-foot diameter circle, and it would be impossible to indefinitely defend yourself against 4 ridden players as well as their hordes of the, ridden zombies, or the common ridden. And the thing is, though, because you're playing for time, if the cleaners quit, you can't kill the cleaners. So they're just there forever. The game would go on forever
That's what happened to me.
until everyone on the ridden side quits. And I'm just like, how is there not anything in this game that makes it so that if all the cleaners quit, they lose the round? And that, like, they just make it so that it's not AI that takes their place or anything like that, so that you just have to kill the AI cleaners. It's just, nope, the game is eternal now, and you're here forever. So buckle up or quit. And
I think it's
I don't
even
know.
worse the other way around, because if you're the cleaners and the enemies leave, it says defeat. It says you've lost. Like, well, we've
Really?
survived.
Wow.
They've left the game. It just comes up on your screen, defeat, and then you get no
What happened
points.
to me. Wow.
So
see, that's
whatever-
weird, because you'd figure at a certain point as the cleaners, you could be like, okay, well, I mean, they're all gone, so let's just let the common zombies kill us, or let's go into the storm and let the storm kill us, or the gas. But yeah, no, it's I think it's the swarm in this. It's called the swarm.
the fundamental part of the game can't decide what it is, because they literally said this mode exists because they put it in things like barbed wire and they wanted a reason to use them. That's the reason they took out versus, which is the most ridiculous reason ever. But they want you to defend an area and defend a building, but they realize that's trash and nobody likes it. So now you've got a gas to deliberately move you out of that building. They simultaneously want you to defend an area and not defend an area and move around at the same time. So they know versus is better. This is what gets me. They know versus is a better mode, but they want their little tools that they added in to be used, but also know that that's not fun and entertaining, so we've got to force you to move around the map.
Yeah.
It makes no sense from a game development point of view at all. And it's just not fun.
I know, and I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, that I think a lot of what made Left 4 Dead 2 stick around, at least from what I've heard from Left 4 Dead players who did play it more extensively than I did, is that the versus and the PvP is what kept people around for as long as they were. That and mods, which, with this being a game that has a lot of monetizable elements, you got to sort of wonder, are they going to have specific mod servers and allow mods, or are they going to just say no mods whatsoever, especially with it being fully crossplay with console? What does that look like? That, again, I guess I should point out as a huge positive for me.
Beta!
I think that every multiplayer game should be crossplay with whichever platforms can run the game. Because ultimately, if you give the player the option to turn crossplay off, if they only want to be playing with people in their own platform ecosystem, give them that option. But I think that with a multiplayer game, especially in a world where we have juggernauts like Fortnite and Call of Duty, Warzone, just vacuuming up tons of multiplayer players, and many, many, many other multiplayer games that are options for people, maintaining a player base is really difficult. So having it so that, hey, if there's 10,000 players on Xbox and there's 10,000 players on PlayStation and 5,000 on Steam, guess what? There's 25,000 players of this game because you can all play together is incredibly valuable, especially as games age and become less populated because, no one wants their game, like the game that they love to play when they get home from work, if they have a multiplayer game that they throw on to kick back or just have some fun, to just be impossible to find a match in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And crossplay is the answer, which is why PlayStation, knock it off with that we charge people to implement crossplay features. You're screwing your own customers there because they want to be able to play with their friends who have Xboxes. And I want to be able to kill you all with my mouse.
And there's a weird situation they've got where I agree, I don't think they put mods in because they want to sell DLC and stuff, but I don't think they realize that if mods keep players in your game, those are players that will buy your DLC.
Yeah,
if they
exactly.
leave because there's no mods, and they're not buying it. The idea that mods cost you money has always been insane to me, and I don't know why developers do it, but
Cough,
I guarantee you
Bethesda.
that's the reason.
Well, I mean, Bethesda, in fair, oh man, I can't believe I'm going to try to defend Creation Club here. Bethesda at least was, I said I can't believe it, but here, give me a second here. They were at least trying to find a way to monetize mods and keep them relevant, and I think also the end game of that would have been getting mods on console, which the big sell there I don't think is so much Bethesda and obviously not the modders, because the modders, if they give them the tools, they'll make the mods. If you build it, they will come. But I think the big thing is companies like Sony and Microsoft would be like, no, we're not letting people modify our software. Hell, you can't modify Game Pass PC games, and they're on your PC. So Microsoft and Sony, and especially Nintendo, I'm just going to throw them in there, don't want you messing around with their curated, super well-developed software, even if it's like, well, I mean, I fire up Dead Space and the mouse aim is absolutely trash, but guess what? Modders made a fix, so I can just download that and then fix a problem that EA is never going to do. Instead, they just rebooted the entire game. But you know what I mean? Like, I think that one thing that Bethesda had going for it there over companies like Warner Brothers saying, yeah, no mods for Back 4 Blood because we want to make money on this, is they're trying to be like, well, why don't we meet the publisher and the money interests and the players and the modders halfway and say, hey, what if we do mods, but we find a way to monetize them? I don't think it was well implemented, and overall I think that free mods will always be better than paid mods, but I guess I see what their intention was. Okay, what did you guys think of the camp and the boxing gym and the firing range and everything? Because honestly, I spent a ton of time in the firing range. I don't know why. I just like fiddling around with the guns. But
I just used it to load in games. I didn't really do
Yeah.
much.
If it didn't exist, I wouldn't miss it. It has a nice impact the first time you see it, and then they immediately just run up to the people and never use it ever again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think that if you didn't mess around with it much, one thing you might have missed is the firing range gives you damage readouts of each weapon and how that damage drops off based on distance. So the one thing I found pretty cool about that is you could really get a feel for which guns were effective in which situations by just picking any gun up and fiddling around with it and getting better at managing its recoil and using it. And I think that you didn't necessarily need to make it a dynamic hub world that you can kind of walk around in. You could have just had it be a menu option, hey, load firing range. But I did find that especially for a game in which you entering as a new player might be joining a couple of your friends who are going to be depending on you to not be shit, to give you a pretty easy means to hop on and get a feel for the weapons and figure out which guns are closer suited to your playstyle and which ones you're better at handling, was pretty cool. And I sort of wish that more games would implement that.
But even though they're trying to help your teammates not be shit in that way, because they can aim, the rest of the game doesn't help that at all. Like, there are infinite areas where the zombies will just keep on coming, and the game doesn't tell people that easily. The amount of times my entire team, like, there's that bit where the car lifts up and you've got to run to the house along the end of the road.
Yeah,
and if you don't go
I died there
immediately,
a fair amount.
yeah, if you don't go immediately, you are in major trouble. And as far as I can tell, there's no way of knowing that that's an infinite thing until you've died there once and realized. And some people, if they've never played Left 4 Dead, I don't think you're very likely to know that it's infinite either. So some people are playing poor little tower defense on the car at the front and just dying for ages. Now, Left 4 Dead 2 always did that very well. There was always an alarm, or there were like constant horde noises and stuff. And in this, they just kind of appear, and you're supposed to know, okay, there's a horde now just because there's a few zombies climbed over a wall. So
Yeah.
I don't think it has a lot of the audio cues or the signals that Left 4 Dead 2 has.
Yeah,
And
fair.
I mean, I suppose those are the kind of things that can be implemented before the final game comes out. Because one thing that I also did find kind of cool about this beta is it would immediately, at least on PC. Oh, actually, both of you guys were playing on PC. Never mind. Lethal, I'm so proud of you. But immediately when you close the game, it fires up like an edge window, like an explorer window, essentially a browser, and gives you a link to feedback. And you can actually say, hey, how was this element of the game? How did you like this element of the game? And then at the end, you can leave your own comments. And I'm like, well, I'm hoping that people are actually using that and providing feedback, because from a polish standpoint, at the very least, I think this game feels like it's ready to ship, essentially. I mean, I don't know if they're still working on the other levels and everything, but I thought that I didn't have many real problems with performance when I wasn't streaming. I had a bit of frame hitching when I was trying to stream it, but just during the game, I was at a locked 144 frames a second in 4K max settings the entire time I was playing, and I was pretty impressed by that, because I was like, wow, this game is in pretty solid shape, even though it's like 3 months out. Yeah, I guess September, October. Oh, I guess 2 months away. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what did you guys think? Do you think that the way they've positioned things for feedback is going to be effective? Do you think they've got time to fix things, or do you even think there's anything major that needs to be fixed aside from design things and all of versus mode?
Yeah, I think throw versus mode in the bin, personally. Just throw that whole thing in the bin. Get rid of that completely. But I think for the most part, it's pretty much done. There's just a few little... Again, it's just a beta, so I'm only judging it as a beta. But like, there's some bugs here and there. Like, I saw a T-posing zombie once.
Oh, really? Yeah, see, I didn't notice anything like that. I was actually impressed with how polished it was.
So I think
Disbrew's smiling, though. I feel like he saw some crazy shit.
No, that happened in Left 4 Dead 2, that's what I mean. So that's even more like the classic experience if you want to do that.
Turtlerock's just like, look, our zombies T-pose, okay? Deal with it.
Regularly I'd see that in Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah, but I think for the most part, it's well done. Just a few little things to go over. If it's releasing in 2 months, I think it should be pretty schmick by then.
I like the core experience, because the core experience is just Left 4 Dead, but I think there's loads of stuff they have to do. Not just the audio cues. I would completely and utterly rebalance the specials. I think all they've done there is they've taken the original ones, mixed them up a bit, and made them all bullet sponges. So now, like, everything's melee, everything just charges you. They don't have the kind of finesse and everything that the original zombies specials used to have, because one bullet could kill them in some circumstances. So I think they were a lot more strategic, and that also made the PvP better because there was more variety.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough zombies. I think the entire, what's it called? Not the matchmaker. The game director needs a lot of work to spawn in zombies, right? Spawn in more hordes. I think there needs to be more zombies in general. And you can tell that because the zombies, they know there's less of them. Maybe it's a performance thing, I don't know. But they've buffed the zombies to be more dangerous. And I think that's also why the specials are bullet sponges, to try and distract you from the fact that there's less zombies.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find the specials to be too bullet spongy. They could definitely take more damage than the regular zombies. But I will agree, there does seem to be less zombies than what I was expecting. But at the same time, they are stronger. And I think I kind of prefer that.
I liked the hordes from Left 4 Dead 2. And also in Left 4 Dead 2, if you got separated from your team, you were dead. You know, you'd get jumped by something, a special would spawn near you, hordes would focus you, and you just had to be near your team. In this, the amount of times I just wandered off on my own and did just fine were insane. So, I don't know. I think they need to punish that kind of behavior deliberately. So I think all this can be solved by the time it launches, but I do think the stuff around the edges of the core game does need quite a bit of work.
Okay, and one thing about the bullet sponge specials, though, that I wanted to point out, I've noticed that the weak spots on the special zombies are incredibly high damage versus just shooting them in their... You have hit indicators, kind of like in Call of Duty. It's a little X with no center in the middle of the screen when you're firing. And if you're hitting an enemy weak spot, it's yellow. And if you kill one, it turns red. Obviously, kind of. I think actually Call of Duty, I believe, does a similar thing to that as well, to give essentially, I guess, people that are hearing impaired or playing with no volume on an indication that they actually did something. But what I noticed, especially the tall boy, I think is probably the easiest example. So it has a big kind of William Birkin eye thing on its shoulder, and that's its weak spot, and it moves towards the player with the opposite arm forward, and it sort of sidesteps. So what you have to do is get one player to pull the aggro and like to get that enemy's attention, and then have other players, now looking at its exposed weak spot, gun down its weak spot. And I find that actually if you hit the weak spot, even those big strong ones go down really fast. And I think what they're going for is trying to make it so that, especially on higher difficulty levels, because even veteran I found actually pretty difficult in this game, which was kind of, it basically was impossible if you were playing solo queue. Like you needed a group of people who you were talking to and who you knew could play the game. But I think that especially if you get to, Nightmare, I think is the highest one. If you're on Nightmare, I can only imagine that the only way you're surviving one of those special zombies is by coordinating with your team and being like, okay, there's a tall boy, like Lethal, you run up to it and shotgun him in the face and then start running that way. We'll flank around and then hit the weak spot. And I think that is maybe not a total excuse, like 100% forgiven for them being bullet spongy, but I believe I see what their intention is. What I hated was the bloaters. I hate any enemy that runs up to you and explodes, and I can't tell you how many times I was in a cramped space, and then all of a sudden one of those things was going through a window, and I was like, I have nowhere to run. Okay. This thing's just going to blow up and I'm going to lose 75% of my health, and there was nothing I could have done, because even if I gun into its weak spot with the AA-12 and kill it right now, it's still just going to blow up and still do the exact same amount of damage to me, so I might as well just let it hit me. And I think that was a kick in the balls.
Yeah, I've got a clip of where we walk out of the safe room, we go down a hill, and the hill is basically, this game's very corridory, so even on a hill you don't have much space. And two of them just run up the hill and decimate us, and we die. And it's like, I'm not even sure what else we could do in that situation.
Out in the little forest?
I don't know. You'd literally come out of a safe room and immediately go downhill, and it was pitch black darkness as well. We had that card, so we didn't stand a chance. All you see is this exploder charge up, and you're like, oh, well, at least it only took him out, and there's another one in my face, and it's like, fastest death I've had.
Well, now we're all going to die. Hold hands with your fire team partner.
Yeah, and in Left 4 Dead, the big sort of, the boomer fat guy that did that on other people, it's like 2 bullets and he was dead. So that was the counter of him doing that to you. Whereas in this, I'm sure on the exploder, I'm holding the trigger on him as he's running at me, and it's just, there isn't a chance that he's dying before he reaches me. So I don't know. I personally, I think I would prefer they removed the high damage zones and just had them at lower HP, or have them as headshots. I agree, it's quite nice that he turns away, but to have all of the enemies have that mechanic where you've got to shoot them in a certain area. Also, I don't know if anyone else noticed, but I felt like I had aim assist on PC with a mouse. I was sure I was missing heads.
There was an aim assist option in the menu, I believe. I'm not sure if it only activated when you're using a controller, but I turned it off just because I don't like aim assist with a mouse, because I'm not just saying that to try to sound cool, like, hey, I'm a PC gamer, so I don't need aim assist. But in a game where you have dozens of targets on screen at a time, the trick with aim assist is you might be aiming at one specific zombie for a specific reason, and the aim assist might decide, oh, okay, he's trying to aim to that one just to the left, and I'll be like, that one just to the left is running for Disparu and he can take care of himself. I need to kill this guy because it's running for me. So I kind of hate aim assist for that reason. But I guess we can kind of go around the horn and give overall impressions to kind of cap things off, unless there's any other major issue you guys want to go in depth on.
The bots are the worst thing I've ever experienced in any game ever.
Yeah, no, the bots are horrendous.
They don't even res you. Like, I literally had 3 of them standing next to me, and I'm like, can you just pick me up, please? And I had to wait until I died because they didn't do anything.
Not only do the bots not resurrect you, they will stand right beside you. and just like they will not progress at all unless you lead. So I found myself in a game with 3 bots when I didn't know the map and didn't know where to go. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, dude, does anyone here know where we're supposed to be going? And I thought there was a place we could jump down, but I ended up hanging off a ledge when that happened. And I was like, hey guys, like, come on, like, it was someone gonna go, but they're all just kind of standing there like, yeah. So the I agree with that. The squad made AI really needs some help. One thing I did like about it is if you had a connection issue or something weird happened or someone dropped out of your game in PvE, it would automatically replace with a bot.
Yeah,
and I thought cool. that it was like, okay, at least we're not down a whole gun. We've just lost a human and got a very, very stupid robot. But I would rather have a stupid robot with a gun on my side than no other gun at my side, personally. But it's not a big plus.
So the last 2 things I'll say is, you kill one zombie and your player is just covered in blood, like from head to toe. You are red. You are basically just red, and your gun is just covered in blood splatter straight away, and it's quite comical. But I wouldn't recommend getting this game if you don't have anyone to play with. I think a lot of the fun from this game comes with playing with others. Like, especially when you start playing on the higher difficulties and friendly fire's on. You're like, Mark, you just shot me in the back of the head. Fuck you.
I did that a lot, to be fair.
So shit like that is pretty fun. But I really think if you don't have anyone to play with, I wouldn't recommend getting this. But if you do have people to play with, I think you'll have a lot of fun. The core experience is there. It's basically Left 4 Dead 3, but there's still a few little things to work out. But I'm confident within 2 months they can have most of that sorted.
And in Left 4 Dead 2, it was quite a decent single-player game because you could carry just because the specials were so easy to shoot and kill and everything. Whereas in this, I do find that once a team member's gone down, it's so hard to recover. And if you die and get revived, just getting back into the game, even joining late, if you join late, you don't always get all your cards. I was joining on later rounds, and I'd have like 1 card. I'm like, well, this certainly seems to be like map 5 or something, so you'd think I'd have more. And there were just time, especially as the bots, they won't pick up guns and upgrade or anything. So I was spawning on a bot and it just have a bat, and that was it. And it's so hard to recover when you get put back like that. So groups definitely help. And I think a lot of the issues with the game are solved if you play in a group.
Cool. And yeah, I think overall I was pretty positive on the PvE modes. Again, I think we're all unanimously saying the versus mode is absolute trash and you shouldn't even waste your time on it. So Turtle Rock, if you're going to work on anything, either focus on the PvE and just can the versus mode entirely for now. Say the versus mode will be coming back in 2023 or something, and that might be a better bet than launching it with the versus mode that turns off your entire PvP player base. Or really do a lot of work on the PvP and make it worthwhile. But I think that, though, the timing for us getting this video out, assuming we can get it edited together in time, is pretty good, because the open beta starts on the 12th, meaning if before August 12th you're hearing this, you can expect to give the game a shot yourself and find that you either 100% agree with one of us, or more or less agree with all of us, or think that we're all idiots and that it's either the best game ever or the worst game ever. And I think that we can at least agree that it's neither of those things.
It's definitely a video game.
It's definitely a video game. It's definitely not the best one, and it's not the worst one. It's a game where you shoot zombies with your friends. Decent shooting mechanics, pretty good performance, crossplay, a lot of stuff going for it. A lot of things that could use some brushing up, particularly that squad-made AI and the terrible, terrible, terrible versus mode. But anyways, I guess that has been myself, MarcTheCyborg, my Australian friend, Lethal Lightning, who's actually on this side, my English friend, Disbrew, who's right here, and this is Gaming with Geeks. See you guys next time.